NATO is a tool of the 1%.
Do we have a serious problem with hunger in this country? The United Nations says the answer to that is yes. It sent a special investigator to regions right across Canada. And what he reported today, speaking within earshot of Parliament Hill no less, has outraged the government.
License plate 6433 MP 6433.
Well, it is a total and complete and very orchestrated media blackout that is taking place. Not a mention of NATO as a criminal conspiracy responsible for an enormous level of violence on the world scale in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Libya, in Syria, really all around the world. And here in Chicago, where there are thousands and thousands of police, National Guard, state police, police brought in from other states and districts, arrayed against protesters who are really calling for an end to NATO wars. In other words, these are really nonviolent, anti-war protesters. There have been roundups, raids. They charged a group of young people with terrorism charges and conspiracy for terrorism because they plan to participate in this demonstration. And all of it is calculated in the media here to try to make the population fearful of participating in the demonstration tomorrow. And do everything that they can to disempower the population here, who is beginning to understand the enormous cost of these wars and the cutbacks here at home. And I do want to say that people on the street really stop and wish us well. And we will see in what numbers they come out tomorrow. But there's an effort to silence the average person from coming out of use of all of these fear tactics, which the media is fully complicit, the U.S. corporate media, in their coverage of the demonstrations.
Indeed. I mean, you spoke of the people on the streets. I mean, protests are taking place not only in Chicago, but elsewhere in the world too. What do you think these protests mean for the NATO alliance?
Well, it's a very important, this is a really a historic juncture, because there have not been demonstrations in the U.S. against NATO, which is a U.S. commanded military alliance. And it's the first time, even for the anti-war movement here, who has talked about U.S. wars, but not really understood the alliance that the U.S. has with the other Western imperialist countries of Western Europe, Canada, and the U.S., and the way in which they operate. So this has been an important juncture also for the Occupy Wall Street movement, who has paid a great deal of attention to the banks and their focus on the 1%. And their slogan has become that NATO is a tool of the 1%. In other words, it's protecting the interests, the enormous power and privilege, the vast wealth of the 1% that is leading to such really growing poverty right here at home and enormous dislocation all around the world. So
The CBC's Laurie Graham has this story for us tonight from Ottawa. Laurie.
Those comments from the government didn't deter the UN Special Envoy, Peter. He said he wouldn't mince words, and he didn't.
And today we have a large number of Canadians who are unacceptably too poor to feed themselves decently.
For decades, the alarm has been sounded about First Nations not having proper access to healthy food. The UN Special Envoy for Food Security acknowledged that as a serious problem, but said they're not alone.
We have in this country more than 800,000 households who are considered food insecure, representing between 2 and 3 million individuals, and that we have close to 900,000 people depending on food banks.
During his 11-day tour, DeShooter also visited half a dozen cities. He came armed with statistics, saw the problem firsthand, and still, the government refused to accept his conclusions.
It would be our hope that the contributions we make to the United Nations are used to help starving people in developing countries, not to give lectures to wealthy and developed countries like Canada. And I think this is a discredit to the United Nations.
But he was actually here on the invitation of the government. He met with a number of people who depend on food banks to feed their families.
Food is almost non-existent. My monthly income from 3 jobs is just under $2,000 a month. That's my take home, what I can use towards taking care of my kids.
The only grocery store on our nation here.
Part of the report was devoted to the food crisis in First Nations communities.
I am struck by the desperate situation in which many find themselves. Often huge communities depend for 80–85% of their members on social assistance in order not to fall in food insecurity.
Canada's health minister took offense to that.
I don't know how he can make a conclusion. He's not even set foot in my region. Again, I say, he's another academic who is studying our way of life from afar.
He may not have visited a Glukax community in Nunavut, but he did meet with northern leaders and spent time in a number of First Nations communities where people confirmed they don't have adequate access to healthy food.
Our land is being developed by industry, so the habitat for the animals that we hunt and fish and trap is being encroached on, and animals are moving out, and the land where we pick berries is being developed.
DeShooter says he'll take his findings and prepare a report which he'll eventually present to the UN Human Rights Council. Peter?
Laurie, did he recommend anything that we haven't heard before?
Not really, Peter. DeShooter wants a national food strategy, which many groups have been calling for. But perhaps what is new is the international attention the issue is attracting, which the government clearly does not welcome.
All right, Laurie, thanks very much. Laurie Graham in Ottawa tonight.
BC's Chief Medical Health Officer is weighing into the pot debate. Perry Kendall is among a group of medical officers who want the federal government to reevaluate its marijuana laws, including penalties and regulation. Dan Hutchings joins us now with more in tonight's Checkpoint.
Jim, Dr. Kendall and his counterparts in Saskatchewan and Nova Scotia say Canada's drug laws are archaic. Criminalizing the use of marijuana and tough drug laws haven't worked. They say pot should instead be taxed and regulated.
Okay, what are we doing?
Well, another Saturday marijuana march and smoking at City Hall.
Yeah.
Successfully completed. We actually got the zombies to join us for a minute while we were at the sales today. That was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Invited them all back for next weekend. Hopefully they'll come.
Okay.
Even if they don't wear their zombie outfits, they're more than welcome. It'd be great to see a lot more Kelownites coming out to support at least support getting City Hall to join the rest of the valley in calling for changes to these laws that are hurting people, hurting patients, creating communities that aren't really safe, while handing over billions of dollars to gangsters. It's time to end that. It's bad enough we have corporation gangsterism going on. We don't need to be making it possible for actual gangsters to own corporations. let's just end the prohibition. Let's all get together every Saturday right here in Kelowna till the laws change. That's it from me.
Okay, right on.
We think there's anywhere between 25 and 35,000 people march, which is massively more than was expected or hoped for, so it's a brilliant turnout. And I think an illustration of how angry police officers and others working in the justice system feel about the fact that ministers are letting it melt down. And as a consequence, there'll be less police on the beat, less crimes detected, and alas, more victims.
Why is it important to have this protest?
Just to show the government the strength of feeling throughout the police service on what they're proposing. Well, we're very, very limited as to what we can do as serving police officers and servants of the Crown, and at the end of the day, this is a tool that we would like to use, and hopefully they'll sit and listen.
How's it going?
Very well.
How's it going?
Very well.
How's it going?
It's good, thank you.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Did you get any reaction when you went past the Home Office?
Not yet, no.
Well, we already know across the whole of the justice system that there's chaos. Cases are being delayed in court. It'll take longer and longer to get a conviction if there are less police officers, longer and longer to get a prosecution if there are less prosecutors. So it's all extremely worrying.